Last one of the day. Be back tomorrow. Hey, one thing. We're close to getting to 50 grand on the 50-50 raffle, so somebody's going to leave with 25,000 bucks. So that could be a good one. If you want to get in. We'll start drawing tomorrow morning. So we're close on the 50 grand raise. So appreciate everybody's support and effort. Jordan said, any of you guys that drove and you're local, make sure you grab some Ag Swag buckets out there and take them home for the farm. So take them home with you. I mean, I always carry my tool. My dad carried a tool. We carry everything in them. So those 5-gallon buckets that make the flag out there, start taking those tomorrow if you want. Load some, take them to your truck, take them home with you. So don't be scared on that end of it. Yeah, they have the logo, the 250-year anniversary and all that jazz. So feel free. Next speaker, someone I heard about, fellow Razorback down in Arkansas, down there where my kids went. And I thought it'd be just a great story for us all. So I'm going to introduce Blake Brewer. He's got a powerful story, and his mission has touched the hearts of many, and he continues to share it with the organizations, businesses, and communities across the country. Most recently, Blake was featured on the Dad's Got This segment of the NBC Today Show, and he was on the show with Huckabee, with the governor, Mike Huckabee. So I want to turn it over, give a warm welcome to our friend Blake Brewer. Blake?
Blake took something terrible,
I didn't see it
that happened in his life, and now he has used that to help, so far, tens of thousands of dads.
I think he's just getting started because I'm going to tell everybody.
A letter is that voice, whether you can hear it or you can read it, and that is a gift.
Pig Suey! So I was standing there at my freshman orientation at the University of Arkansas, and that was the first time that I'd ever heard that in my life. And I looked over at my mom and I was like, what are these people doing? Now come to find out, the entire state knows to do this. But I was like, Mom, do I really want to go to a school with people that do this? And but it was a little too late. I was already committed. So I will say a few months later, with about 75,000 people after a touchdown, it was pretty awesome, calling the Hogs. And so I've been calling the Hogs now for the last 20 years. And it was not this past football season, but 2 football seasons ago, that was my all-time favorite to call the Hogs. Number 4, Tennessee was in town. There's no chance that we were going to win this game. And we're losing the entire game. And then about halfway through the fourth quarter, we take the lead. And the place is going nuts. And Tennessee gets the ball. They're driving down the field. And we stop them. And we win the game. But that's not why it was my all-time favorite. It's because of who was with me. My first grade son, Bo, was at his first big Razorback game. And man, he was going nuts. And we were jumping up and down, high-fiving each other. I mean, it was awesome. And then everybody starts rushing the field. And I was like, man, I can't take my first grader down on the field. Yes, I can. And I took him down on the field with me. And we got this picture. And let's just say I think he's going to be a Razorback fan for life now. And so it was about halfway through my freshman year. And I got a call from my mom, and she said, Blake, we are going to take a family vacation to Hawaii. And I said, heck yeah, let's go. I've been down to Florida a few times. I've never been to Hawaii. And so a few months later, we boarded the plane. Now, little did I know that going into this trip that my dad had made a decision to invest in our family and invest in me. And I was about to find out about it on this trip. And so first day there, we decided to go snorkeling at a place called Hanama Bay. And everybody's on the beach. There's my family. Everybody's on the beach. My mom, my sister, my brother, my grandmother. But then out in the water, it was just me and my dad. And I got to share with you, there's nowhere else in the world that I wanted to be than right there with my dad. So I was really fortunate. I had a really good dad. He was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And there was moments growing up where I was like, oh yeah, that's my dad. And then there were some other moments where I was like, oh shoot, that's my dad. Maybe you can relate. He was kind of a quiet guy. He was an introvert. He was reading all the time. At this time in my life, he was a hospital CEO. He was he umpired football games. He loved football. Before I was born, he was known as a football player, and he'd been drafted by the Atlanta Falcons to play tight end. But his main claim to fame is that at Louisiana Tech, he was Terry Bradshaw's tight end. And so they were best friends and roommates. My dad caught Bradshaw's first ever collegiate touchdown pass. No one probably remembers the 1970 draft in this room, but it was a big deal because for North Louisiana and Louisiana Tech, because Terry Bradshaw went number 1 to the Steelers right before the draft. They got flown up to the Oval Office to hang out with President Nixon. Now, my dad was a very humble guy, so he hardly ever told anyone that he was Terry Bradshaw's tight end. I told everybody. It was my claim to fame growing up. Am I getting some feedback? Are you guys good? Okay, great. And so there we were out there in the water. And we started off on the beach. We're above the coral reefs right there. It's like 5 feet deep. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But then we just kept going further and further out. And we ended up at that point on the right side. And that area over there it's called Witch's Brew. And Witch's Brew is known for its treacherous waters. And it was that day. It's about 50 feet deep. And there was this moment where I kind of pulled my head out of the water and realized I don't know where my dad is anymore. And so I'm scanning the water looking for him. I can't find him anywhere. I'd have to wait for a big wave to kind of pick me up so I could see out. And I slightly panicked because now I'm out there by myself. But then I see him. And I remember thinking, okay, good. There's my dad. Except not good, because my dad was struggling. One way that I knew he was in trouble is that he was trying to get up on these rocks. It was the only place to get out of the water, but it was a horrible place to get out of the water because the waves were just crashing against them. And so sure enough, my dad's about halfway out. Wave hits him, knocks him back down in the water. I swim over there as quickly as I can. I can't find him anywhere. And now I'm exhausted. And I've got to get out of the water. The only place is the same place my dad tried. And so by the grace of God, in between the waves, I'm able to get up on top of these rocks. And I'm scanning the water looking for him. And I see him. And he's treading water. And he looks up at me. And he says, I need help. I need help. And my dad had this really deep, booming voice. But this cry for help sounded more like a soft whimper. And so I turned around and I faced the beach. I began to just wave my arms. I'm yelling as loudly as I can, hoping that somebody might see me or hear me. They look like tiny ants. I didn't have much hope. I turned back around towards my dad and I had a decision to make. Am I going to just stand here or am I going to jump in after him? And I knew I couldn't just stand there. And so I jumped in, I swam about 10 yards to where he was, and now he's underneath the water. And he's unconscious. And so I dive down, I wrap my arms around him, I bring him back up to the surface, and I begin to swim with him to the shore, but I had to go around that point. And it was about the edge of that point where I realized there is no way I'm going to make it. Like, I am absolutely exhausted. And in that moment, a nearby snorkeler showed up and began to help me get my dad to the shore. And then the lifeguard showed up. They had seen me, and so they put him on a surfboard, and they brought him the rest of the way in. And so now we're on the beach, and they're doing CPR. And as I stood there next to them, I felt so incredibly helpless. And I did the only thing I knew to do in that moment. I just cried out to God, God, would you please save my dad's life? And I really thought that at any moment my dad was going to come to, that it was going to be like the movies where he kind of flickers his eyes open and the water spews out of his mouth. It never happened. And so my dad drowned that day. And it went from one of the best days of my life to the worst, just like that. And now I'm standing there next to my dad's body. Like, what the heck just happened? We were just in the water a few minutes ago, having the time of our life, and now my dad is gone forever. A few hours later, we're back in the condo. And I just called my dad's parents, my mom, who just become a widow. No condition to talk to anybody. So it was on me, I'm the oldest son. And my dad's parents were devastated to learn that they had lost their oldest son. I called our church, some other family members, family friends, my dad's work. I go to the back bedroom, and I'm sitting there on the edge of the bed. In this moment, it was as if the world just stood still as I was trying to understand the gravity of this situation. And I remember just asking God, what happened? Where were you? And how are we going to make it without my dad? How am I going to make it without him? And it was in that moment that my mom appeared in the doorway. And she's holding something. And she said, Blake, I found something in your dad's briefcase. Something that I know he was going to give you on this trip. And she walked across the room. And she handed me a letter from my dad. And I began to read this letter. And I don't think I've ever heard my dad's voice more clearly than the first time I read that letter. And his voice comforted me. I felt a sense of peace. I felt hope. And then I felt incredibly loved. Do not tell me that my dad did not love me. He took the time in the midst of his busy schedule with everything going on to put it down on paper. I get to the last line of this letter, and I wasn't surprised that he wrote it because he is a man of faith. But he wrote, as you are being faithful to God and to the Bible, you're often going to find yourself in the minority here on earth. But I can assure you that in heaven, you'll be in the majority. Love your dear old dad. And I remember reading that and just thinking and knowing, I'm going to see my dad again. I can't imagine my life without this letter. In the coming days and weeks and months, I experienced more pain than I'd ever felt in my life. As I went back to Arkansas, and I'm in the dorm room almost every single night, crying myself to sleep, missing my dad, reliving that day. And my life was really at a crossroads. I could have left this tragedy, bitter at the world, bitter at God, a victim, depressed, anxious. I could have turned to some substances to try to escape the pain that I was feeling. And it was as if the exact opposite happened. Over the next 12 months, I found myself growing more as a person, as a leader, growing more in my faith, closer to my family than any other 12-month stretch of my life, discovering my life purpose. I had some professional counselors tell me, Blake, you have grieved this in a really healthy way compared to most people. And I said, yeah, most people don't get a letter like this from their dad. One of the things that I took from my dad's letter is that it wasn't about me. It was about others. And I want to give my life to the things that matter. My time here on earth is going to be really short compared to eternity. And the time that I'm here on this planet, man, I want to live for what matters. So even in the months after my dad drowned, I found myself mentoring some of the freshman guys on my hall and using my dad's story to help them think about what was most important. And some of these guys, their lives began to completely change. And I was honoring my dad and his legacy. Well, then it was a few years ago that I became a dad. And so this is my family right here. They're back in Tulsa. And my last name's Brewer. We affectionately call ourselves the Brew Crew. And so we've got Gracie Kate. She's 10 years old. Gracie Kate is kind of a mouthful, so we named my son Bo. We're at the Tulsa Drillers baseball game, and out past center field's a playground, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, can I go play with those kids on the playground?" I said, "Yeah, man, go for it." He goes, "But I'm not going to tell them my name." I said, "What do you mean you're not going to tell them your name?" Well, he said, "Dad, you know, it's like a bow that you put in a girl's hair." I was like, "Bo, that's not your name." No one is thinking that. I was like, "Bo, you got a strong name." I said, "Think Bo Jackson." And so we started watching Bo Jackson videos, football and baseball. And then we got Brooks. He's 5 years old. If he was with me today, I'd look up. He'd probably be in somebody's lap right now. This kid's never met a stranger. And then we got baby Baylor, 18 months old, plays with a ball all day long. I wasn't that excited about the name Baylor, to be honest. But my wife was loving this name. And I was like, "But we have no connection to like the school Baylor. Like, I don't know about this." But she convinced me of it. And I said, "Well, we don't live in Texas. If we lived in Texas, no way." Well, then a few months ago, and maybe some of you guys do this too, but our little nickname for our kids has always been like Bear, like, "Come here, Bo Bear," and then it was Brooksy Bear. And then the other day I heard her saying, "Come here, Baylor Bear." I said, "No, we're not saying Baylor Bear." Don't get that started. But I'm sitting there looking at my family a few years ago and my kids, and I'm like, man, I want to be a good dad here. Like, how do I do that? And I want to see my children be successful, and I want to see them be confident and resilient. I see the world that they're growing up in, and we talked about this morning, the social media and the voices that I've got to now compete with. Man, what do I do? Man, I know what I got to do. I got to write them a letter. If anyone knows the value of a letter from their dad, it's me. And so I sat down at the dining room table, pulled out a blank sheet of paper, and I got to say, it was incredibly overwhelming looking at that blank sheet of paper. Like, what the heck am I going to write? And I had a new appreciation for my dad's letter. But I knew I had to finish. And so it took me several months to finish this letter. It was one of the hardest and the best things that I've ever done in my life. And I ended up doing a lot of research to understand, okay, if I'm going to do this letter, let's do it right. Like, what words do my children need to hear from me? And so I finished the letter and it felt amazing to have this done. I realized as I did this for my kids, like, man, wait, I think that was for me. Like, I was changed. Help me think about what I wanted to be true of my family in the future. Help me know my children on a deeper level. And then this letter gave me something to live out. Now, I did decide to read the letter to Gracie Kate. She was 4 at the time. And so I was like, Gracie Kate, I got something for you tonight. And normally I'm reading her a book, like a princess book. Well, then that night I began to read this letter to her. And I start reading this thing. Do we have any criers in the room? Do we have any criers? You guys are afraid to admit it in this conference, aren't you? We got some criers in the room. Maybe some of you would say, man, you're not a crier. Well, you wait till you read this letter. Because, man, the tears were just flowing down my face. Like, I couldn't keep it together. And I'm wondering, okay, what is she thinking right now? So I finished the letter. And I look up at her. And she looks right back at me. And she says, Daddy, can you read me the princess book now? Yeah. So I read her the princess book, and I think I cried during that too. But the next night at supper, she came up to my wife and she said, last night Daddy read me a message. Can he read me that message again tonight? And so she didn't understand everything that I wrote in that letter, but she got the main concept, the main point. She's got a daddy who loves her. And so it was around that time that I meet a couple guys. And one of these guys, his name's Victor Marks. Victor Marks is doing incredible things around the world, rescuing women and children caught up in sex trafficking. He's actually running for governor of Colorado right now. If anyone from Colorado, I'll be happy to introduce you to him. But he begins to tell me the story of when he was 25 years old, living a hellish life, just got out of the Marines. Those were his words, not mine. And in the mail, he gets a letter from his biological dad. And he opens it up, and the first line says, Dear son. And Victor told me he was ticked. He was like, who does this man think he is that he can call me son? He abandoned me when I was a child. I've had 4 stepfathers. All of them have verbally and physically abused me. One of them left me to die in the freezer. And now this man wants to call me son? No. Puts the letter away. But this is the beauty of the written word. The words are still there. And Victor, just like any other man, wanted to know, man, what did my dad say? So a couple months later, he pulls the letter back out and he reads it. And his dad had had a complete life change. Actually became a Christian. And was trying to reconcile with Victor and trying to apologize. And so Victor reads this and says, okay, I'll go meet him. I'll just go meet him once. And so then he goes to meet with his dad. And long story short, Victor and his dad become best friends. And a few years later, Victor got married, and his dad was his best man at his wedding. And I'm listening to that story, and I'm like, okay, because he didn't know my story at all. He's telling me that story, and I'm like, okay, I got a letter, you got a letter. Maybe we need to help some more people get a letter. And so that's where our mission began. to help 1 million people write at least one well-written, meaningful, lasting legacy letter. And so for the last 5 years, we've been guiding people around the country writing this letter. We put together a guided experience for people to go through. We came up with an outline. Hey, if we're going to write the letter, these are the things that need to be in this letter. We need an intro section. We need an apology section, which is one of my favorite sections to coach people through and guide them through it. Sometimes I'm guiding through several hundred people through it. Sometimes it's one-on-one. But the truth is nobody had perfect parents. And we're not perfect parents. And all the research has shown that it's not about having the best parents. It's about having parents that are willing to say, I'm sorry. And if someone has that in their life, they're going to be more confident, have more emotional intelligence. And then we have the I love you section, so helping people communicate the depth of their love for their children. Do you think my children have any idea how much I really love them? No. They can't even comprehend how much I love them. Like I could call them right now and tell them, and they still could not comprehend the depth of my love for them. But the more that they can understand it, the better off they're going to be. I'm proud of you. I believe in you. Some special memories. The advice section and writing it in a way that can be received, not to come across as controlling. And then the closing paragraph. And we've guided about 20,000 people over the last 5 years. I had no idea when it started, like how are we going to reach people? How are we going to help people do this? And we've had some incredible organizations and companies that have come alongside us, and even some people in this room have said, hey, I got some people that I care about. Like, let's help them write this legacy letter. And I had no idea when I started that I'd be going into businesses and at sales trainings and other meetings and helping people write a legacy letter. And get to speak, got to be on the Today Show and with Huckabee. And people come into writing their letter with a lot of different reasons. And we say this is for any stage, any age, any situation. Some people are in their 90s writing this letter. Some people are writing this letter to their newborn. Some people are writing this to their teenagers. Some people are writing to their parents, to their spouse. The question that I want to ask you right now, and I'm going to give you guys some time to discuss this. And then we're going to talk about what does it mean to go live for our legacy. But with the people around you, I want you to think through this for a second. I'll give you like 5 or so minutes. What is one thing that your parents did that you're intentionally repeating with your family? And then what is one thing that you're doing differently? And I know that in a room this size, there's some of you, man, you had great parents. And there's on the other total opposite end where your parents were not good at all. And they hurt you. And there's everywhere in between. And so don't feel like you have to share. No one has to share anything they don't want to. But with the people that are around you, take a moment and answer this question. And then I'll bring us back together. Sound good? Go. You guys got some good stuff? Some good stuff over here? You guys got some good stuff? My mic is still on. I don't know how to turn it off. Where are you guys from?
Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Oh. All together?
Uncle and nephews.
Do what?
Uncle and nephews.
Oh.